Hello, my name is Michael Brown, and this is my individual differences presentation for ACTE633. So the first prompt was to identify what makes us a unique learner. As far as my story goes, I had a very interesting start to my educational career. And when I was in kindergarten, my teacher actually passed away in the first week of December in the year that I had them. And because of this, I had a day-to-day sub up until about March, in which they finally filled that position with a long-term sub that was able to kind of start boiling down some of the curriculum. But up until that point, the teachers were pretty much that were in the class were on damage control, seeing as the death was, unexpected. The filling the position was kind of difficult at the time. And the fact that we were kind of missing out on those fundamentals definitely resonated with me later in my elementary school career and kind of set me up for my unique spin on my education. So that takes me to my second point. So as far as first grade goes, I was actually pulled into a remediation class for reading. I look back at my first grade as essentially my redo for kindergarten. I was in a program called Chapter 1, which was a reading program, and I was in that until about third grade, in which we were pulled out and had kind of there's about 4 or 5 of us that were in this special pull-out class in which we had some extra fundamentals that we went over with in the reading curriculum, if you will. My parents also did pick up the Hooked on Phonics program, which helped offset some of the issues that we had from that kindergarten class. However, I went into first grade essentially behind my peers, so I was kind of making up for lost time by that point already. By the time I was in middle school and high school, I had determined that I am very much a visual learner as far as what identifies me as unique as a learner. I am very motivated by lessons and classes that involve hands-on learning. That is why I chose the sciences. I love kind of diving into my projects as I go. I'm very much a lab-based teacher even now, but I always say if I wasn't in the sciences, I would probably be in the tech field somewhere or possibly even art. I love woodworking, metalworking, stuff like that. So there's a part of me that really likes that hands-on, visceral feel that you get when you have a physical thing in front of you. Which meant that I struggled a little bit more with the conceptual classes like math and English in school to a degree. I had a hard time with the abstractness of those classes and how making the connection in my real world with those concepts was slightly difficult for me. As far as positive and negative responses, I have them listed almost in a backwards order here. The most positive response was my parents. I definitely lucked out in having parents that recognized that as long as I was trying in my classes, straight A's were not a thing I needed to get. Now, luckily, because of my ability, I was able to get them most of the time, but my parents weren't concerned with that. They wanted me to learn. They were actively making that choice. I also had the luxury of having counselors that very much saw that, and they were very driven to help students that were looking at their future and making choices to make well-rounded students instead of focusing them down at an early age. I also look back at the intervention that I went through and how that was able to help me overcome a lot of those issues that I had in kindergarten. Going into that remediation class in first grade, I was below level. When I left elementary school at fifth grade, I was reading at a high school level. So I made a lot of leaps and bounds as far as progress goes. And I think, on top of my parents, but those remediation classes and the teachers that really helped me get through that. My negative responses, I would say, was the remediation class as well, but it was more because of the way I perceived it. I looked at it as kind of a failure on my part. I also had a struggle with teachers that were very rigid in a way of how they wanted work submitted or how we were to finish certain projects and whatnot. If the teacher had a specific way that it had to be done and it didn't match with how I perceived it, that did cause a little bit of headaches on my part. It's not the teacher's fault. It's just how it was. As far as what do digital generations need now, I feel when it comes to your students, what they need the most is an educator that's willing to look at them as an individual. As I just expressed, I had a very unique backstory to my education, but I don't think you can tell it just by looking at me. And I think every student has that unique background. There's a lot of life that goes on in school and out of school that affects a student's education. And I think the teachers need to be willing to look at that and understand it. I also think that teachers need to recognize that students are still learning. There are expectations that need to be set for students, but I also think that there needs to be a little bit of gray area when it comes to the academic portion of it. Behaviors, there's right and there's wrong, but as far as the expectations, as the academic expectations, you need to be willing to make sure that there's growth being shown. Teachers, they also need to be willing to try different methodologies to reach the students. Not everybody's going to learn in the same way. So making sure that you present the information in multiple different ways is one way that you can hopefully reach the students that may not pick it up the first time around. I also like the idea of a classroom that promotes what the students will truly need for their future endeavors. And what I mean by that is not using, skills or presenting information to the students in a way that's already antiquated nowadays, let alone for when they reach that point in their lives where they will utilize the stuff and look back and hopefully have made progress from that. So as far as that goes, that is my individual differences presentation. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it.